Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm so happy to have you. So my pre-edition subscribers, welcome back to the channel. So for today's video, we're going to be talking about and discussing the meeting between Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, and the U.S. President Donald Trump, and we're going to find out what really went on behind the scenes in Alaska. What did he really talk about? Now, a lot of people, the media, and a lot of people like that are going to be telling you that it's all about what's going on in Ukraine, but I don't believe it is. Not for 1 second do I believe that the conversation revolved around Ukraine, if anything at all. If anything, there's something a little bit more sinister, something a little bit more behind the scene. And that's what in this video we're going to find out. In this mystery video, what really went on behind the doors. Why did they have foreign information? Why did they have classified documents in Trump's hotel? We're going to find out all in today's video. Why did Donald Trump suddenly tweet on his Truth Social app that he planned to shut down voting machines and mail-in voting? Why? Why is it that he's following the footsteps of Vladimir Putin? Vladimir Putin did the exact same thing in Russia. Who's to say he's not doing the same thing here? Who's to say that he is not seeking advice from Russia? Because in a way, Russia sees Alaska as its own. And so in order for Russia to receive Alaska, Trump must also receive something in return. Trump wants to become the 48th president. He wants to become the, not the 48th, but like the president of the 48 U.S. states, or better yet, 49 U.S. states. But he doesn't mind giving up Alaska. And that's really telling. So we're going to find out in today's video. I did have this video planned for 2022 when I originally planned to do this video, but I didn't get around to it. But today, we're going to do that video. Hello, Lindsay. How are you, my love? So this video is being recorded on Monday, August the 18th at 10:46 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This video is just being recorded, so this is just for entertainment and for educational purposes only as well. Anything I do or say in this video is just for disclaimers and disclaimers only, just for education. And if you want to help out the channel grow, you can do so by liking, commenting, subscribing, hitting the bell icon, engaging with the content. Sharing this video with others really helps boost your algorithm here on this YouTube channel. I do want to do a quick community spotlight to those of you guys who have been actively participating in helping the channel grow in some way. I do want to highlight for this week, Search for Truth, Lauren Paul, Dennis Thomas, Extreme Brand, and Nancy Dixon. Thank you so much for all you guys who have been doing your part to help out the channel grow, whether you're liking, whether you're commenting, whether you're just subscribing, whatever it is. I want to say thank you, seriously, from the bottom of my heart. And so we also do have a description and a link in the description below for my Blue Sky account and my Facebook group if you want to be personally notified when a new person uploads. This intro is way too long, so let's get on with this and let's just find out exactly what went on behind the scenes and why was it so secretive. So they were telling me to do an underground tarot deck. So I think I might have the perfect deck for this. So let me just go find a deck that fits that description. I'm actually just being told now I should use this. It's called Dream Decoders. So let's take a look at that. So it's saying it's underground. So if you guys know of a deck that is similar to the energy of underground, what's hidden, let me know. Because I'm going to pull that deck. Hello, James. How are you, my love? They're saying I should use that deck. Okay, so Spirit and Angel, tell me about what went on between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump in Alaska. What went on behind the scenes between Putin and Trump in Alaska? Okay. So this is the top of the deck. If it doesn't look like coding to you, I don't know what to say to you, but this is coding. Okay, this really looks like coding. The bottom deck says family, and it's this. Okay. That's the bottom of the deck. This is the top of the deck. Okay. So these two cards represent the overall themes of what they were supposed to talk about. This is representing what they really talked about. So these two cards represent what we really talked about behind the scenes. This is what they were presenting that they were talking about. Now I want to show you something. Look at the picture imagery. Does that look like a war to you? It kind of does, right? Let's read it. The first thing comes up here is accidents. Like somebody's falling down the stairs multiple times, hitting their head on the stairs, and as they tumble, they're going to hit a floorboard. This is somebody who they feel is at a disadvantage. Right? So the meeting was about a disadvantage and creating an accident that did not need to be happening, but yet they did. This card represents disaster. Right? This is man-made disaster. This is war. Right? This is taking somebody who is at a disadvantage and creating problems that wasn't really needed. This is man-made disaster. This is talking about the Ukraine war. This is what they showed people on the news and the media. Okay, this is what we're going to talk about behind the scenes in Alaska. But behind the scenes, this is what they really spoke about. The first card that comes in is buildings, like city. You have here, you still have the red moon. We have the red moon here as well. The red sun, if you will. Underneath this, we also have here numbers. City and numbers. Money. Right, coding. What city can we take over? How can we take over? Remember, what we talked about here is shutting down voting machines and mail-in ballots. We spoke about how he actively sought out to advise the Putin on how to take over the United States, how to take over the electoral process, how to take over the election machine, and all those type of things. This is what this represented here, because this represents an accident, right? And here represents a disaster. This is man-made disaster. Accidents are man-made disaster, revolving around a city or population, revolving around the numbers, the voting. Okay. The top of the deck of this specific deck represents technology, coding machine, computers, laptop, and tablets occur very commonly in dreams. So do heavier pieces of hardware such as elevators and escalators. You can't make this up. This is literally what came up on the top of the deck. We asked, what was really talked about behind the scenes? Well, it tells us here, it was talking about war. At least that's what it told people. But behind the scenes, they were talking about population. They were talking about numbers. They were talking about voting. And underneath here, we have family. But you're like, okay, so why does family come up then? Why did family come up? Why did family come up? Because it says here, if you dream of a family member, this might be related to issues between you. This is talking about issues. It's talking about the dynamic. How can we divide families? How can we create disasters between families? How can we break them up so that they are unable to think critically, to make them polarized, that even a Democrat wouldn't speak to a Republican and a Republican wouldn't speak to a Democrat? How can we get them so divided that they see each other as the enemy rather than the one who created themselves, who created the situation, excuse me. So what I'm trying to say is that what they are basically doing is they are essentially creating this so-called division between the Democrats and the Republicans, trying to figure out how can they further drive this wedge between the two, and say the Republicans see the Democrats as the enemy and the Democrats see the Republicans as the enemy, but yet it's all puppeteer, it's all for show, it's all theatrical, right? It's saying that, well, they see each other as the enemy, but they don't see the person who playing the game, who is controlling the game as the enemy. The best way that I could describe this, you ever saw the horror movie Star? You know, like how the guy is riding on a little bike and he's the one who makes the game, right? And everybody plays along. The Democrats and Republicans are the people who, they are the players. But there is somebody on the top who is creating the game, who is running the show. And then one of the players rise up and say, listen, I'm going to take control of the game and we're going to continue playing. The thing is that just because one appears as the enemy doesn't mean that they are 100% the enemy. There is something more than just the Democrats and Republicans. There's more to the story. There's more to the division, the polarization of the United States. And this is going to be further insinuated by what was being said behind the scenes in the meeting. So at least we can confirm that they did indeed talk about votings. They talk about city population, how to divide, how to further drive a wedge between everyday Americans so that they cannot critically think. Let's see. What card? Ooh, let's see. We're going to use my deck. Let's use my deck. That would tell us a lot. We're getting the context first. We're getting the meat. We're getting the appetizer. Then we're going to go into the entree. So, Spirit Angels, tell me more about what went on in this meeting between Putin and Trump. This is going to confirm what we spoke about before. That's why we're reading this again. Because we're going to confirm it with a card that's a little bit more literal, hopefully. Spirit Angels, tell me about what happened in the meeting between Donald Trump, the President of the United States, and Vladimir Putin, the President of Russia. What did they really talk about behind the scenes? Why were they talking about voting machine? What were they talking about the election and population, then disaster, then accident? What were they talking about? And why were they talking about numbers? What were they talking about and why? Okay. The first card that comes in is Shadow Government. Nothing evil here. At least that's how it appears, right? Remember I said that in the beginning of the video, I kept being told by Spirit that we need to do an underground tarot card reading. What was really hidden in the deepest shadows? There's nothing more deeper than the Shadow Government, right? It's reversed because it says here, they're saying on the news, nothing evil here. That confirmed what we just spoke about before. And then it follows in with the incumbency. How can you remain in power? How can you stay in power? Because on the bottom, when it's reversed, it means incumbent loses re-election. But instead, it means incumbency. It means how can you stay in power? How can you stay in control? How can you prevent the law from removing you? How can you prevent the law from being above you? How can you be above the law? And this is also talking about the 1980s to the 1990s, the Southern Strategy, impeachment trial, Soviet Union versus the United States. Right? And you also have here technology boom. Why is this significant? Because this card came up in reverse. Why is this significant? It's significant for multiple different reasons. There was a strategy here, the Southern Strategy. That's what it says here, the Southern Strategy. It talks about impeachment. How can you make sure you're above the law, that you cannot be removed? How can you stay in power? How can you stay in control? Right? It's all here. This happened in the 80s and the 90s. Right? We're talking about the impeachment trial. We talked about the Southern Strategy, the division between the United States and Russia in the 90s. Right? This is all coming back full circle. And also, I can't help myself but notice that there's a computer, there's technology here. Also, everything we just spoke about before. How can you stay in power? How can you stay in control? Right? It's by rigging the election. And so what happened behind the scenes with Alaska, there was an exchange, an agreement, there was an exchange of information. The thing is, it was not a meeting about Ukraine. It was a meeting about how can we ensure that I stay in power and still do your bidding. In the top of the deck here, we have the electoral margin. 269 to 289 electoral votes. 199 to 212 seats and 52-48 Senate. That seemed to be on par with what Elon Musk said the real results really was. We also have here historical leaders. There's a president here. There is a president that's been here. It's saying that the United States has been here before. We've been here before at this very point in time with all this happened before. This happened before. This is why it's repeating again now. What Donald Trump is doing is not unheard of. The United States has been here. The United States have done this before. We had a president who wanted to seize control and power. I don't know what president that is. And if you guys would like to tell me, whether in the live chat now or in the comment section below when you're watching this video again, or if they're saying that somebody has done this before. And that is why Donald Trump is doing it again, because there's a historical precedent for this. And here you have an experienced leader. He sought help from an experienced individual, somebody who did it in Russia, somebody who got rid of democracy. Now, I do want to let you guys know this as well. Russia fell in the 90s, in 1991. Right? Putin came to power in 2000, left in 2004, came back right around time Obama came back into power, when Obama went into power. The thing is that Russia, democracy, voting machine, had not been long enough. Had not been long enough that it's able to create the institutions to self-sustain itself. It's easily vulnerable to collapse. The United States has had decades, centuries of time to build its system up, its institutions up. That's why when Trump tried to seek experience and information from Putin, Putin's only taken from his perspective. The reason why he's so successful at what he did was because he had more time to do it. But the country didn't have enough time to protect itself. But the United States has time to protect itself. But the difference between the United States is specifically that. But there's a similarity here as well. The United States as a whole has only just really begun in terms of voting patterns in the United States between black people, women, gays, Native Americans. Native Americans are the only demographic that still cannot vote in today's U.S. election. They are the only demographic, believe it or not. If we know that the Americans, they cannot vote in the U.S. election. And why is it important? Because it talks about the institution of the United States is not secure, and the fact that every American in the U.S. is being fairly represented. And this foreshadows what happened in Russia as well. Russia didn't have the same institutions, yes, but it also had the same problem the United States did. The United States took centuries, decades to get to where it needed to be. We only just had majority of the population voting since 1965. Other before that, people kind of struggled to kind of get the representation. So the U.S. Institutions are not well developed, but it's a lot more developed than that of Russia. So in essence, can Donald Trump destroy the election system? Yeah, he could. But very well, because we still haven't got full representation. So we're not a fully functional democracy. And so it makes a lot of sense how this all could happen. There is a historical precedent. And Lindsay said, Richard Nixon, you think? Okay, so if you guys can confirm if maybe one of my history buffs here who know a little bit about history, Richard Nixon and whether or not he tried to seize power and to remain in power, because it does feel like Trump is trying to seek a way or a path forward on how to stay in control and power. So that was the meeting. That was the Alaska meeting. What really happened behind the scenes? And we did 2 readings on it, and it confirmed twice what we have just spoken about before. That's really good. Now we're going to find out how are they going to do it. How to rig the next election. That's what we're about to find out right now. Okay, I'm thinking about a deck right now. Give me 1 minute. Okay, that should be good. All right, let's find out how to rig an election. How do we say we do this, Spirit? Okay, so they want me to use this deck first, 2020 Vision Tarot. One of my favorites decks. It's very beautifully well colored. So Spirit and Angel, tell me about the United States. Oops. Tell me about the United States. How to rig an election. Tell me how it's done. Now, I've said this before many times, that United States rigged the last election via the voting booth. I said that they went into the coding mechanism and they altered the coding software. They didn't delete votes, they just didn't count the votes. That is how they got away with it. That's how they did it so successfully, because it hides the evidence. But here's the catch here. The reason why Donald Trump is trying to shut down voting machines and mail-in ballots, you're going to probably see all on the internet right now. People are speaking about how Donald Trump is trying to get rid of the voting booths and voting machine that, what do they call it, that didn't get rigged or didn't have the new coding software. No. What Donald Trump is doing is he's trying to cover his tracks. Because he knows the investigation that's happening in New York right now with the investigation into I forgot what in the county, but upstate New York. They're investigating the 2024 election. So if you get rid of the mail-in ballots and you get rid of the voting machine, you erase the evidence and proof that you altered the election, you altered the result. So this is not about, hiding and trying to rig the next election in terms of shutting down the voting machines and mail-in ballots. This is hiding the evidence so they cannot expose you for shutting down and altering the result of the 2024 presidential election. That's what it's about. So that is why Donald Trump met with Putin in Alaska to discuss about how he can stay in power despite the impeachment trial, to possibly make sure that he is above the law. That was all that the meeting was about. We said that in the meeting. That's literally what came up in the cards. I didn't tell you that. That's what it says in the cards. Word for word. He said that himself. Again, this video, of course, is just for entertainment and for educational purposes only as well. But that was what it was about, because it's getting closer to the evidence being exposed. And so as someone starts to realize that, oh crap, they're gonna find out, I'm gonna do whatever I can to make sure that they can't find out, to hide the evidence by getting rid of voting machines and mail-in ballots and forcing people to vote by ballots in person only. And that's what really comes down to. So I want to make sure you know that, because I'm going to do a reading on that right after this one. All right, so Spirit Angels, tell me about shutting down. Tell me about how are they going to rig the next election? How are they plan to rig the next U.S. election? How do they plan to rig the next U.S. election? How do they plan to rig the next U.S. election? This card? You're telling me to take this card? There's a lot of energy here, so these are major arcanas. Okay, so there's a lot of energy on how they plan to rig the next U.S. election. The question is that I'm trying to figure out, is this the 2028 presidential election, or is this the 2026 midterms? We already know that they're already attempting it. I said it many times before. I said it well before Donald Trump took power, that I don't see the results going in Democrats' favor. I said that before, and people were like, no, you're crazy. I'm like, nope, I know exactly what I felt. I know what the energy is. I've been there before. I felt the energy. Definitely not Democratic. Okay, so Spirit Angel, tell me about how to rig the next U.S. election. How do they plan to rig the next U.S. election? Anything else? Anything else? How to rig the next U.S. election? Okay, they're telling me that's all we need. Okay. And then I'm going to use this deck, and then I'm going to find out how they plan to rig the next election. I was with a client the other day, and I had this deck for years, as you all know, and apparently the same cards can no longer fit in the same deck that it came in. Is that crazy? After speaking with the client, it can no longer fit in the deck. Very bizarre. Very bizarre. Anyway, Spirit Angels, tell me about how they plan to rig the next U.S. election. How do they plan to rig the next U.S. election? There's definitely resistance here. Okay, so they're going to use gay marriage, overturning gay marriage as a form to rig the election. They're going to use gay marriage as a way to do it. Very weird. Very weird way to steal it, but that's what it says here. Okay, so this is word by word what they're planning to do. This is word by word what they plan to do. This is further clarifying the story here. This is a step-by-step on how they plan to rig the next U.S. election. The first card that comes in is Hanged Man, reverse. What did it say here? It says censorship. Sensitive content. This object may contain sensitive content which some people may find offensive or disturbing. The Hanged Man. It's reverse. It feels like nobody in every state is going to get the same information. It feels like there's going to be a state-by-state basis of information. It's going to be in a situation where, let's say, for example, New York is very pro-LGBTQ, right? But in Texas, it's anti-LGBTQ. So they may have different information in terms of how everything is being portrayed, but it's to the benefit of the administration. It's to the benefit of the Trump administration. So in New York, it might say Trump is going to protect gay marriage, but in Texas, it's the information that gets on the media says Trump is going to remove gay marriage. And so it's kind of like that type of energy where there's division between two drastic groups of people from two different ideologies, from two different perspectives on the world, but the information is the opposite. It's to the benefit of the White House itself rather than to the benefit of the individual to be well informed about the current state of things. But you're going to start to find out that in multiple different areas, a lot of people are going to be getting different news and different reality, and nobody's going to know what to trust, what not to trust. But there's a catch here. There's going to come a restriction on those interactions from state by state, country by country. There's going to be almost like a ban, if you will. There's a ban. There's like I'm seeing like a border, and there's like a wall, like almost like a see-through wall. I'm seeing like what's it called? Like those chainmail walls, like a fence, right? And you know, like a prison fence, type of like that, something like that. I'm seeing one person on one side, and one person on the other. They're trying to speak to the other, but they're yelling, but it feels like you're yelling into a void. That's what this says here. It said the hanged man in reverse is saying that somebody's speaking into the void. The people are speaking to the void because they can't seem to get the information they're speaking, but they just can't hear you. The person on the other side of the fence cannot hear you. So it feels like one of the main steps on how to rig the next election is essentially prevent others from hearing other people, to make sure that you cloud them out, so censorship. Underneath here, what is clarifying this is the Two of Cups, unity. Remember I talked about how they are going to try to drive a wedge between Democrats and Republicans so they cannot interact with one another, to get them to the point where they see each other as the enemy rather than those who are the actual enemy itself. The people who run the story, not the players. But the players see each other as the enemy, but not the one who's running the game. The next card that comes in is we have the Lovers card, the relationship, USA forever, right? The Lovers card. I didn't even know there was the Lovers card even in this deck. This is the first time I've even seen this. I had this deck for years. This is the Lovers card. The Lovers card in this specific indication is talking about nationalism. It's talking about USA forever, loyalty, and it affects the psyche of the brain, which is represented by the 6. The 6 means a repetitive pattern. You haven't learned your lesson. You haven't learned. And it's just like Stockholm syndrome. They get people to be involved, to make them think that, hey, listen, you're outside the cage. We push you outside the cage. But you can choose to fly away. The bird could choose to fly away. It's outside the cage. But it doesn't choose to fly away because it's comfortable with what it knows and it's afraid to explore what it doesn't. And therefore, what they have done is they have essentially almost pushed so many people in this mental state of jailness that even when the doors open, they can't see the door. So the best way I'm going to describe is how people in zoos do this with this elephant. So for example, in order for the elephant not to run away or walk away as an adult, what they do is they take a baby elephant, they tie their leg with a rope and put it towards the post. And so as the baby elephant, it knows it cannot pull. It can't get out of that tight knot on its leg. It feels like it cannot escape. And eventually, as it gets older and older and older, it gets bigger and larger, it has more power. But as a baby, its trauma trapped them in this mindset into thinking that I cannot never escape. And that's why you see, and you walk around, and you go to these dudes, you see the elephant trapped to the pole just by a simple rope, because it's the mental entrapment. This is how they did it. This is how they're going to do it. They're going to do it by open up the door and say, hey, listen, you have all this freedom, but would you choose to seek the freedom? The thing is what they're doing is that they're trying to take away people's rights. And by doing so, it gets them in the Stockholm syndrome. You could take away everybody's rights and then give them back later on and say, hey, listen, we're going to give you back your rights. But people are so stuck in this trauma that they're afraid to accept these rights because they know they lost it before. They lost the ability to have the freedom. So what are you doing here? What are you doing with the freedom? It's the freedom to express yourself, the freedom to be really free. This is what they plan to do. This is how they're going to rig the next election. It's by using freedom and taking away people's rights and then giving them back, but making sure that people realize that they are powerless, by giving them mental trauma so that they are always stuck in that mindset. What's the next one? The devil, the red hat. What is going on with MAGA? What is going on with MAGA? As long as they can prevent MAGA from resisting the Trump administration, right, and resisting everything, anything that is truthful, anything that can get them out of this fog, they will remain in power. This is the 8 of Wands here. The 8 of Wands is the resistance. As long as they can make sure that the MAGA people are stuck with the cult and not with the resistance, and then fall to the resistance, the people who are playing the game, the people who are running the show, will remain in power. The game will continue as long as those believe, the MAGA people believe, that they are part of the system, not part of the resistance. That's part of what they're going to do. How are they going to rig their election? By making sure MAGA people feel as if they are part of a grander theme, that they're part of a bigger story, something bigger than us. That they lose the sense of individualism, but rather they embrace their collective cult-like ideology. What's the next story? We have here temperance, imbalance, the glow. Instead of the glow, we have the darkness. Creating darkness, creating upheaval, creating chaos. We have here, how do you create chaos? How can you create upheaval? What is something that glows? What is the most brightest thing that can glow? It's the LGBTQ flag, gay marriage. This is significant because this takes place on the Supreme Court. Why are they taking away suddenly gay rights, gay marriage? This just goes back further than just gay marriage. This is not about the religious concept. This is about the idea to create a formation of control, trapping you in this mindset, trapping you in this Stockholm type syndrome, this mindset, feeling like once you are stuck with this rope, you can be as powerful as you can be, but your mind, your mental state will limit your power and your ability to fight. That's what they're doing. That is how they are going to do this. They're going to play the game to resist you by using your own mental state to stop you instead of trying to employ people to stop you. Instead, they're going to use your mental state to do the work for them. Your mental state, your mental health is so important. That is why the United States has, for the longest time, sought out a lot of propaganda to ensure that people don't get the mental health care that they need. Because as long as people are mentally not in alignment with their physical body, their mind, soul, spirit, as long as they're not in alignment, they can control you because you are the most vulnerable. At the lowest vibrational state, it's when your body is disconnected from your mind, spirit, and body. That's why you need to get your body in alignment, your mind, body, and spirit. You need to be in alignment because if you're not, your vibration is lower and you're easily vulnerable to manipulation, control, and gaslighting. And that is what they do. Remember, CIA, FBI, they're all aware of this. The US government is aware of this. There's documentation, clear documentation that they are aware of this. So who's to say they're not using it? Let's go back into the story. How else do they plan to rig the election? We have here justice, reversing justice. Remember this person, the Lady of Liberty, having a torch? It's to reverse justice, reverse those who have been, who didn't do the right by people, and instead got the justice that they deserved. Instead, this is saying that we're going to reverse that justice, reverse to those who they deemed as wrong, who have been wronged for their behavior, the consequences, if you will. And what a clarifying this. Oh my God, there is no better one to describe this more clearly than the Five of Cups, which symbolizes the Civil War. You can't make this up. The Civil War. What are they trying to do? They're trying to bring back the ideology, the concept that white people, the what's called white empowerment or white supremacists, this type of ideology, this movement, this mental state that we're above somebody else, that somebody else is below us. It's the fact that when they want to reverse justice for those who have been wronged, who they deem as wronged, who have the consequences brought upon them, they feel like they need to reverse course. They need to change that, to reward that behavior so they can bring that mindset back. They can bring that societal norm back. What they are seeking is to reverse progress. They're seeking to reverse those who have received the consequences that they deserve, the justice that they deserve for the people who have been suffered, who have suffered. That's why it's represented at the Five of Cups, the Civil War. And here you have it, the Sun card. This is a girl normally who's running in the sun, in the beach, American beach, running, the Sun card. This is a girl who's running in the beach. But you kind of see here, if you look at her face, she kind of looks a little terrified. Not exactly a girl who's full of happiness and full of joy and all that. She's running a little bit. She's a little scared. I will definitely say that. She's definitely a little scared because why? Why? Well, take a look at the ground. Well, if anybody who knows anything about tsunamis, you see here there's a little bit of water being receded out into the sea. And when more water is being pulled out into the sea, the bigger the wave that comes crashing back. So what does this mean? It means that the more justice that people have received in the U.S., the more that storm has washed ashore into the ocean and is planning to push back. So the energy is going to come back tenfold. All the energy that was brought back for people with justice will come back rushing in to save them, that they want to be the saviors for those people. And here you have it. What's the final card? How do they plan to rig the election? We have the Tower card. To change the results. The Tower card is to change the results, change how government works, change how things are counted, change how things operate. Because here you have is the oligarchy, which is represented at the Seven of Cups reverse. To change how things work, the oligarchy. And here you have it, the Ten of Coins reverse. Making people so busy with their lives that they don't have time to do anything else but work, work, work. Make things so expensive so that they have no choice but to work. Make it so that when you go to jobs that you cannot speak on the internet, or you cannot talk and you cannot do this, you cannot do that, otherwise you lose your job or you get punished or whatnot, you get written up. That is how they control you. That is how they designed it. This is the system that was designed to fail. This was the system in the U.S. that was designed to control. Remember, for many times, and a lot of people have forgotten this, that the United States had never been a true democracy. It had never been about the American people, not once. It has always been about controlling the American people. Look at Lyndon B. Johnson with him lying about the Vietnam War. He lied. He thought the American people were stupid. We had the rise of fascism in the 1920s, right? We had the U.S. government involved in CIA weaponry, scientific experiments. Hello, Lily. Hello, Dennis. We had all these different things. The U.S. government and at its core is evil. It's demonic. It's corrupt. The system must fail. It must fail. It must end. But this is part of its Pluto return. This is part of the consequence, because although it served justice at certain points when it was convenient for the government, because it did it with the wrong intention, it didn't do it with the intention to help end slavery. It didn't. I told you many times before that when Abraham Lincoln came to the United States, well, not came to the United States, but rose to the presidency and decided to start that civil war and finish it once for all for slavery. It was never about slavery. He used slavery as a cover-up because Europeans were planning to divide the United States based on a conquest. They wanted to divide the U.S. and say who was going to control what land: Italy, Spain, Germany, the U.S. They were dividing the United States, and so his only way to save the Union, as dark as it is, was to use slavery, because all those nations that I just mentioned banned slavery. Those people in those countries did not support slavery in around 1860s. They did not support slavery. They abolished it. But the U.S. was far behind. So he used the cultural movement of slavery in the U.S. to justify keeping the Europeans out of war. They were actually looking into entering the war when the division between the South and the North began. The intention was not about helping people be free. The intention was to keep the Europeans out of American affairs. That's all it comes down to, and that is why the system itself is failing. That is why the system itself is collapsing, because the intention was never pure. Despite the fact that he saved the Union, yes, he saved the Union, absolutely, but at what cost? At what cost? And remember, I spoke before, I did a video not too long ago about Abraham Lincoln, 2 nights before his death, before his assassination, about how he met Donald Trump and how he foresaw the presidency of Donald Trump. Go ahead and watch that video if you have not done so already. It's actually really good. Very informative, very interesting nonetheless. But I hope you guys do enjoy that specific video if you have not done so, and check that video out. Okay, so now I want to talk about shutting down the voting machines and mailing ballots. And then we're going to talk about the 2026 midterms, and then we'll end today's video. Okay, so let me just get all these cards away, because as you know, I hate clutter, and I'm sure you guys do just as much as I do. So let me just cleanse this out, because when you get rid of all the clutter, you get rid of all the unnecessary energy, if you will. Keeps everything nice and clean. Okay. Whew, it's kind of hot in here, kind of warm. So I'm going to put the fan on. Okay. Thank you for waiting. All right, so let's find out about Donald Trump saying that he wants to shut down voting machines and mail-in ballots. Let's talk about it. So Spirit Angels tell me, Donald Trump said he wants to shut down voting machines and mail-in ballots. Tell us more about that. You're very welcome, Dennis. Okay. Okay. I had to make sure the fan was on me because I'm a little hot. Okay, so the next card that comes in, we're asking about Donald Trump saying he wants to shut down voting machines and mail-in ballots. The first card that comes in is the Tower card. Why is this significant? Because it means a massive change in how Americans do things. This is the first time the U.S. will experience a decrease in democratic norms, will experience a decrease in how the elections are run. The whole point of America's progress up until this point was to expand its ability to vote, to expand upon its democratic principle, despite it never being in real intention about the American people and the American people who live within the continuous United States. Nonetheless, this is what was supposed to happen. But it comes to a point where there has to be reverted. And part of that reversion is to remove the democratic institution, remove the expansion of democratic norms, the election norms. This comes with the Tower card. The next card that comes in is the King of Cups, reversed. And the King of Cups represents a person in power. This represents a leader who is experiencing calm times, but instead this represents a leader who causes chaos among him. This is the reason why. So we're asking about why Donald Trump trying to shut down voting machines and mail-in ballots is to create chaos. To create chaos when there is no chaos, to distract. It's a distraction, if you will. But nonetheless, he has to go ahead with it. Because as part of this distraction, he needs to complete his goal, complete his plan. The goal is the High Priestess. This is the U.S. Constitution. Remember we talked about earlier in the video how it's about him being above the law. Like, how can he stay in power? How can he stay in control? The High Priestess is telling us the Constitution. The Constitution. It's to cause chaos around the Constitution, which means something within his presidential executive order or his statement is going to brazenly violate the U.S. Constitution in some way. And it's going to do so brazenly that the Constitution turns upside in itself. It turned inside itself. I don't know why. I don't know why it's telling me that. But it's saying it turned inside itself, and the U.S. government flipped upside down entirely. It's being the hanged man. The U.S. government is now the hanged man. This is why the Hierophant is reversed. The government is reversed. The government is no longer abided by the Constitution because it blatantly violated the U.S. Constitution. It is no longer need to honor that Constitution. And here it represents the death, the ending. This normally means a rebirth. It normally means a rebirth, a new system, a new goal, a new process. Right? But that's what the death card symbolizes. We're asking about why is Donald Trump trying to shut down the voting machines and mail-in ballots? What I spoke about before is that they're getting closer to the investigation in New York, how they're planning to investigate these voting booths. They're going to the courts. They're going to investigate about the 2024 presidential election, and they're going to find some machinery, some sort of coding software that was manipulated within the voting machine. And still, what is Donald Trump trying to do? He's trying to shut down the voting machines and the mail-in ballots to get rid of any sort of evidence that incriminates him. That is why the card comes in, because it comes in as blatantly violating the U.S. Constitution to make sure that you are actually in power and control. This is a leader who's using this as a form of distraction. Not only from the Epstein files, but a form of distraction nonetheless. But as we start to go a little bit more back into the reading, we talk about more about shutting down voting machines and mail-in ballots. Underneath the Tower card in the King Cup reverse was the Tower card, a big moment, and a leader causing chaos. You have here the Knight of Swords. And the Knight of Swords is somebody who has sleepless nights. But this represents the motive. It represents the intention. The intention is very much to do this. The intention was not to do this on accident. Whether this was intentional or not, it's saying it doesn't matter. The whole goal was to end this. Whether it was coming sooner or later, it's happening. So it's saying that Donald Trump, if he were to pursue this, again, this video is just for entertainment, for educational purposes only as well, would be only doing this because it was already part of the plan. I don't know much about Project 2025, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was also including Project 2025. Underneath the King of Cups reverse and the High Priestess will represent the chaotic leader and him, overstepping his boundaries with the U.S. Constitution, blatantly violating the U.S. Constitution. We got these cards here. We got the Page of Wands reverse, which represents a new leader, preventing the transition, a peaceful transition of power from one leader to the next. We have here the Lover's card, also symbolizes the same exact thing. It's causing disunity, upheaval, the division between state by state. And here you also have it's the Four Wands here. It's also altering the way the elections are ran, altering the U.S. government. And how did a lot of people come to this realization and idea of how do we get here? And I'm going to talk about that in another video. How did the U.S. get to this very point? And there's many things that's going to lead up to this point. And, it's going to be inspired by Cash Peter, which is a YouTuber, a psychic, well-known YouTuber and psychic. And he did the 7 constellations. And I asked him for my approval if I can do my own. The U.S. has gotten here through historical precedent, through historical perspective. Now I'm going to take a deep dive with you guys on how the U.S. got here and why it made complete sense where we are now. And here you have as well is the woman, the Queen of Wands, the U.S. So what does this mean? It's to distract something, to distract from what's going on here. It represents the Page of Wands. It represents preventing a new leader. Who will be the new leader of the U.S.? Not Trump. Trump had been a leader before. But who would have been the new leader? It would have been Harris. We have the Lover's card reversed. It's to create a division between the United States, between state by state region, between ideology, between Democrat and Republican, to divide them so that they cannot have a conversation with one another. We also have here to control the government, to control every aspect of U.S. government. They did this from the bottom up, not from the top down. They did this from the bottom up. They took over town hall, education. They took over all these things because to them, they realized that if we can control the education, we can control the places at home, we can control everything else. And they were, boy, were they right. Were they right? Because people took their own home county, their own home election for granted, and they rewarded authoritarianism. I myself am I myself am, what to call it, part of that problem. I didn't go out and vote in these elections. I didn't. I only voted during the midterms and the U.S. presidential election. I never once voted, and I still haven't voted for any election during the an off year, which is like the year before the midterms and the year after the presidential. But I haven't voted in any other elections, small elections, ever. And that we're part of that problem as well, that they made sure that they took over, and not a lot of Republicans hold smaller positions anyway. But that's besides the point. We have here the government being turned upside down, the Constitution being turned upside down. We have here the presidency, the star card. The president assumes all power, all control. Here you have it, the president who takes more from what it can get, while providing a little bit of power and dividing it between the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. So what does this mean? And what does this mean entirely? Is that when Donald Trump brazenly violates the U.S. Constitution, he is not strengthening the Constitution. He is not making it stronger. He's actually weakening the Constitution by strengthening the power of the presidency. I'm hearing the word all power, all control, all power. And if that card here comes in as a Reaper, what is happening to the U.S. when it comes to the voting machines and mail-in ballots? We have here the Eight of Cups. He's afraid that if people found out what would have happened, he would have been long gone. He would have been long gone. This is why the Nine of Cups comes in. The Eight of Cups comes in. He would have been long gone. And it would have been the end of his political career. It would have been the end of authoritarianism. It would have been the end of Donald Trump. It would have been the end of Elon Musk. It would have been the end of Peter Thiel. It would have been the end of oligarchy in the U.S. It would have been the end of a lot of things. And that is what this means. Why is he doing it? Because there's so much to the story that it's not one size fits all. That there's more of the intention behind this. What is the bottom deck here? The bottom deck is represented as the Nine of Pentacles. It means great fortune. What is great fortune? This is the battle. This is the election. This is the Five of Swords. The top of the deck here is temperance. It's balance. Creating balance and harmony among destruction. So what are some things that we can look for as a collective, as a group, as a society? Is that eventually the U.S. will become more democratic. We will actually no longer be a republic, but rather a democracy. And so that is something that we can look forward to. But in this point in time, in order for us to get there, the system, the institution that created such darkness, such dark intent, must collapse. Remember, the founding fathers were wealthy white men with landowners and massive slaves. Do you really want that as the founding layout of your country, as of your nation? I think a lot of us can come to the conclusion no. And I think a lot of American people feel that. Their story, their control is coming towards an end. Wealthy people have controlled the U.S. government for so long. The only non-wealthy president we ever had in the U.S. was Jimmy Carter. Do you believe that? Do you know that? Jimmy Carter was the only non-wealthy president in United States history. Donald Trump, of course, is the most wealthiest, of course. But Jimmy Carter was the least wealthiest, but yet he was the most kindest, the most sincere president of them all. Keep that in mind. All right. Now that we know about the voting machines and the mail-in ballots, let's talk about the 2026 midterms. Because it talks about how to rig the next election. We discussed how the meeting between Putin and Trump, what the intentions were, what did they talk about. We talked about shutting down voting machines and mail-in ballots and how they plan to do it, how they plan to rig the elections. And now we're going to talk about the 2026 midterms. How do they plan to do it? What's happening in the midterms? Conspiracy angels, tell me about the 2026 midterm. What's happening with the 2026 midterm? After everything we just spoke about right this moment in this video. What's happening with the 2026 midterms? Okay. This is a little concerning. These two cards are a little concerning. Okay. Spirit Angel, tell me what is happening in the 2026 midterms. If you want to watch some of my 2026 midterm videos, I'll put them in the description below and in the comment section below if you want to go ahead and watch it on your own time. And final outcome card of the 2026 midterms. You're absolutely right, Lindsay. We never really had a democracy because we have a republic. Yep, that's correct. Something's wrong with the ballots. I'm telling you right now, something's wrong. Okay. If you guys are still watching and you're in the live chat right now, if you guys are familiar with this, how this deck works is, what to call it? I want you guys right now to take a color, a card, anything. It could be aqua, dark blue, yellow, white, or pink. Go ahead. If you have more than one, you feel more than one, let me know in the live chat. Anyway, when a card is colored, it means it's major arcana. Anything that's white colored means it's minor arcana. Okay? That's what you got to know. When it's shuffled, it's going to further enhance our reading. It works very successfully in almost every reading I did. There's never been an issue with this. I don't see why there would be an issue now. Tell me about the 2026 midterms. Tell me about the 2026 midterm. What do we got to know? Thanks, Lindsay. I'll use blue and white. Okay. Tell me about the 2026 midterm. What's going on here with everything we just spoke about? Okay. Okay, to tell me use the back one. This is for Lindsay. Lindsay asked for this. And then she asked for navy blue. So we're going to get a navy blue card. I can't see the words, by the way, because this is all I see. Okay, that's pretty much it. Okay, what color do I get? Okay, I'm getting yellow here. So we use this yellow. Okay. Okay, then tell me get an aqua. Okay, so they're telling me this is that. This is all I need. Alright, so per Lindsay's thing that she received, she said something with the counting. So she started counting. So there was an issue with the counting in the 2026 midterms. And we have it domestic. So there's something wrong with the domestic counting of the ballots. Something's wrong with the counting system. Okay? That is what she got. What did I get? We have here president. So it's not a presidential year, it's a midterm. So that's on par. We have here as well as we have happiness, which means sadness, anger. Not exactly the correct result of the nation. It's not how the nation is voting. We have here pink, which symbolizes no to a specific answer over here. And then the blue, which is the tower card, the sun card, in the election. We have here climate. I don't know if they're talking about climate change or the environment in which the midterm is undergoing. What is happening with the midterm? How is the collective, how is the current system playing out that is altering the way things go? I'm also getting one more yellow card. I feel like they're starting early to get another yellow. So we're going to use this one. This card means great shaking. Okay, so great shaking. That means something's happening. Something is being shaken. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's something that we're going to determine now. What are you referring to with the midterms? Okay, so we asked about what's happening in the 2026 midterm since it is the next election. We have here, we have the Ace of Wands reversed. The Ace of Wands reversed, this means the card, it means the handover of power from one party to the next. One power from one president to the next or one leader to the next. Doesn't matter, it's the same concept. The Ace of Wands represents that, but it's reversed. It means the party in power remains in power. So what is going on with the 2026 midterm? The party in power stays the party in power. The Republicans control the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. So what does it indicate? As of right now, the Republicans are still very much on track to hold onto the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate as of now. We also have here as well as we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of Wands reversed. The 9 of Wands reversed is somebody who's injured, somebody who's behind, somebody who's lost and confused. This is interesting because it comes underneath the midterm. It means the American people are unhappy with the current system, the current status of the nation, which means that there's something going on with the economy, something going on with the healthcare system around the time of the 2026 midterm that is going to be shaking up their perspective on the administration, their perspective on the Republican-controlled U.S. Congress. We also do have here as well, we have the 6 stewards, which represent trouble. There is trouble in paradise. There is trouble in the nation around the time of the 2026 midterm. There's trouble. I don't know what it is, but there's trouble here. We're going to find out eventually what the clarifier is. We do have here as well, we do have the 9 of swords. The 9 of swords. So this is the story leading up to the midterm. This is the midterms. This is the results. This is the story leading up. This is what's happened underneath the Republican-led administration, the Republican-led Congress. So maybe I take back, now that I understand the layout a little bit more, I take back, maybe it doesn't indicate the Republicans are in power, but we're going to verify that now if we could. We have here is that the 9 of swords is saying no. No, there is pushback here, there's resistance. So now that we know what the pink is, the pink means resistance, it means no, there's resistance here. Now let's take a look at the midterm. Now this is the part that really concerns me the most. The first card is the Tower card. The 2026 midterm represents the Tower, the shake-up, the lightning rod on the museum, the Tower. Further enabled by the Sun card in reverse, darkness. So darkness eclipses the election. Or darkness eclipses the election. This is the climate. Can the voters overcome the darkness that's eclipsing the election? Can the American people overcome that? Can the American voter overcome that? Underneath this Ace of Wands here, which is the midterm, the Ace of Wands is the transition from one person to the next. This is what it's about. It's handing power of Congress from one party to the next, whether it's the U.S. Senate or the House of Representatives. It's about the midterm. And underneath that, what's verifying this is charity. They're just saying that there's hacking going on. There's hacking going on. Again, this video is just for entertainment purposes and for educational purposes only as well. Let me just light this up just so I don't get penalized by YouTube. So you guys can actually see it. For entertainment and educational purposes only as well. There is hacking going on. Okay? That is why I kept seeing some issue with the transitional period, the transition from one party to the next. Underneath this 9 of Wands reverse, which indicates to all of us that the people are unhappy about the current situation of the United States, the American voter, the American collective, the American psyche is unsatisfied, dissatisfied with the current state of things in 2026. We have here is the 7 of Wands here. What are they dissatisfied with? Is how things are going, that you cannot speak. You're just this sense of frustration. It feels like the American people feel restrained, like their throat chakra is being closed up, like they're being choked. So I feel like there's going to be attempts to have massive protests around the U.S. country, but doesn't you feel like there's going to be a lot of it? It feels like there's a massive crackdown. So to answer your question earlier, Lindsay, you want to know, will there be militarized police in our cities in our near future? It's very well possible. You're going to be in a very, very strong sense of restriction, specifically around the neck of American people. There's a lot of that type of energy that's restricting the American people from speaking out openly. So they're going to use this election to speak out as a form of protest. This will be a protest election. The question is, there's going to be massive crackdown on those who are resistant or opposing opposition to the administration. Underneath the 6 of Wands, the 6 of Swords reversed will represent trouble in paradise coming in the U.S. What is trouble? We have here the 3 of Swords. It represents, again, the oppression. It represents militarized people using form of fear to control voters. So I would not be surprised if there's going to be militarized police or areas in the U.S. election or cities to decrease voter turnout. Voter suppression by using a form of military to decrease people going out to the polls and vote. I would not be surprised if that's a possibility. So to answer your question, Lindsay, yeah. underneath the Nine of Swords reversed, what is the resistance? What are they protesting? We have here employment services. There's going to be high unemployment. I have a feeling that there's something wrong with the economy in 2026, and that people are so dissatisfied, or they feel like they might have two jobs already. There's two different ways that this is going to play out. People lose their jobs, and that they can't afford things, or people have to go out and get a third job, and they still can't afford things. That's what it comes down to. It's either going to be one or the other. We'll find out eventually. But at the time that the election comes around, we have here something with the election is off. Judgment in reverse is off. Something with the election is not democratic. This is the voting booth. These are people going out to vote. The midterms. This is the results. Something's wrong with the outcome. Something is wrong with the outcome. And why is there something wrong with the outcome? Because it's something domestic that is wrong with the counting. This is before we even started this reading. I said before, there's something wrong with the counting, and it's involved domestically, and it causes a great shaking. So, that is where we are right now in the 2026 midterms. That is what I get. So it doesn't tell us who's going to win, but I think it's very clearly evident who's going to win. It's very clearly evident what party is going to win. We know what party is capable of this. We know what party is willing to go the length that this reading has just said they did. Again, this video is just for entertainment purposes and for educational purposes only as well, but it's quite telling. It's quite informative. It's quite eye-opening. And as much as I would like to say that this would not be our reality, the last time I said that in one of my videos, I think in 2022, I talked about the bad part of if Donald Trump becomes president again. I said, well, let's hope that this wouldn't become our reality. It became our reality. So I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to manifest anything. I'm just going to stay because I always read and ask my spirit guides to give me the likeliest plausibility, possibility of what may occur, where we're likely to be heading. Our current reality as of now, nothing changes where we're currently heading. And this is the reading. This is where we're currently heading now. So I say to you instead, may God help us all. So Dennis wanted to know, Merriam-Webster appears to say that under the most common meaning of the word, a republic is a country in which the people have to vote, which is an aspect of democracy. The problem is that in the earlier days, New York financial interests essentially took control of the currency. Okay, I don't know where that was going, but okay, I completely get that. Alright guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching, participating. Thank you for all you guys have shown up. I hope you guys liked today's video. Again, I wish I had better news for you, but again, I don't try to sugarcoat, I don't try to lie to you. That's not what we do here on this channel. I try to be openly honest with you. You can punish me, you can unsubscribe, but I just know you'll be back eventually. Thank you. I love you. I'll see you soon. Bye.